Hello everybody, Sunday afternoon, and today's topic is are you living in toxic hope? What is toxic hope? So the first thing we often see in a toxic relationship or an unhealthy relationship, one partner holding on and hoping for change, sometimes for 10, 15, 20 years. Basically it's false hope. They make excuses for their partner, for the behaviour that they're engaging in, and they keep hanging in there hoping that something's going to change with no reason to hope for it. So it's one of the only times that I've ever seen where hope is actually a destructive force. It keeps people in quite toxic and sometimes even abusive and dangerous relationships. So toxic hope is it's where someone's holding on to hope that things are going to change, even if there's no reason, no evidence to believe that there's going to be change. So no sustainable changed behaviour. So what does toxic hope look like? Meaning, when you're in a relationship, how might that manifest? So it would look like perhaps staying in an unhealthy relationship for years with no change, maybe promises of change, but nothing that sort of eventuates or is sustained. Might even see change that lasts a few weeks after a blow-up of some kind. So, for instance, we often do see it in violent relationships where there might have been a violent event, and then there's the honeymoon period afterwards. So, often they'll make promises after that to change, or after an infidelity or something like that. People will often make a promise to change, but it's not sustained. So that's one event. Staying in a relationship with a partner who's been unfaithful multiple times, which is basically non-consensual non-monogamy. So in other words, you haven't agreed to non-monogamy, but this person has been unfaithful multiple times. So it's another time where we often see toxic hope. Maybe staying in a relationship where one person frequently promises to change their behaviour, but the changes either never happen, or if they do happen, they don't last. So this is the kind of situation I was talking about a moment ago. You might see change that lasts a few weeks or even sometimes months, but it's not sustained in the long term. That could be even just in a de-escalation or for instance, they might suddenly make more effort in the relationship, but it doesn't stick. Staying in a relationship where one partner frequently lies. So, you've caught them out in lies a number of times and they continue to be caught out in those lies, but you stay in that relationship and hope that one day they're going to change. Staying in a relationship where one partner refuses to acknowledge how their behaviour is damaging or hurting other people. Again, oftentimes you'll hear them say, oh, well, he had a terrible upbringing, they've had all of this trauma from their childhood, and those things may well be true, but they're not excuses to stay in a relationship that is toxic or unhealthy. Sometimes staying in a relationship where there's a drug or an alcohol dependency, again, they'll hold on to hope that something's going to change, that one day this person's going to see the light and change their behaviour enough to be positively engaged in the relationship. And, that's toxic hope, and that can last for years and years where someone's hoping that they're going to give up that dependency. Perhaps staying in a relationship where one member refuses to forgive a past wrong, or even though that other person has humbly and genuinely asked for forgiveness. And obviously that can affect the relationship. So, one person's choosing to be unforgiving and the other person's hoping that eventually they will be forgiven. So all of those are examples of what toxic hope might manifest like in a relationship. I guess the real thing, the real sort of, point that I'd like to make is that when hope has no basis, no foundation. So you can't see somebody actively engaging in change and just, making the effort for their own reasons to actually change their behaviour. But you keep hoping for a change, or hoping that a change is going to stick or be sustainable, then that is toxic hope. And it does keep dysfunctional, it keeps toxic, it keeps abusive relationships going for many, many more years than is healthy for either person. So what happens when someone stays in a relationship where there is toxic hope? Basically, they'll feel very stuck in that relationship. It's often goes along with the trauma bond, or Stockholm syndrome is another word that you might hear used. People saying, oh, but I love them, I can't leave, or there's something that makes me stay, some kind of attraction or attachment. I just don't feel that I can leave, and I believe that the person I loved is underneath there somewhere, and I just need to work hard enough in order to be able to find that person again. Those are really good indicators of toxic hope. A codependent relationship where you've got a partner who's dependent on or enabling some of those behaviours, because again, often they'll say, look, I believe the person I love is under there somewhere, the person who showed themselves in the first year or two of our relationship, and I'm going to hang out for that person. I believe that they can come back to me. So you can see how destructive a force that kind of hope can be, because there's no reason to hope. You might see the odd glimmer occasionally of what that person used to be, but oftentimes that person was fake. It was a mirror to you of the person that you wanted to believe them to be, and that person never actually existed. So I guess, one of the things that I would say is, if you're in that circumstance and you can relate to any of those things that I've said, start taking note, make a journal and note each day, A, how you're feeling, and B, whether or not those changes are sustained in the long term. So, if you're seeing, 1 week out of 4 that person is the person you want them to be, or maybe it's more sporadic than that even. Maybe it's, you just see that person occasionally, moments of them, glimmers of that person, rather than, being the kind of person that you want to be in relationship with. I would encourage you to think about, the balance of the relationship, the reciprocity, is this person the person I want to be with more often than not, or does it swing the other way and more often than not they're not somebody that I would want to be with? On the balance of things, if your relationship is even sometimes 10% bad and 90% good, well, that 10% can still outweigh the 90, depending. They're not evenly weighted is what I'm trying to say. So, it can be one particular thing that is weighted more heavily that, requires you to, I guess, reconsider whether that relationship is worth being in. An example might be, for instance, infidelity. You might say, well, the relationship is 90% good, but, this person has been unfaithful on a number of occasions throughout our relationship. Or even, when we talk to people who've been in highly abusive and, sometimes physically abusive relationships, they will actually say that, 95% of the time or 90% of the time he's the man I love, or she's the woman I love. The other 10% of the time they're not. But that 10% can be dangerous. That 10% can be highly destructive to the relationship, highly abusive, highly destructive to your emotional well-being, let alone your physical safety. So obviously in that case, the 10% outweighs the other 90. So you really have to consider that, and whether or not there is any reason for you to have hope in that relationship. And you have to think about your own emotional well-being, because being in a toxic relationship is destructive in the long run. Although it might feel good in the beginning, it will always damage you from a psychological perspective and from an emotional well-being point of view. Okay, so if you're in that situation, I urge you to get help and reach out to a counsellor, a psychologist, a therapist. And remember, you know, if you're having a really tough time of it, there's always Lifeline as well. So do reach out to someone and get that help. Going to wind it up there again. Very short Sunday afternoon, coffee size therapy shots, or as I like to call them, coffee shot therapy. Remember, you can check this out on Instagram. You can check this out on LinkedIn if you prefer to read the article. You can listen to a podcast, and all of these videos are always up on YouTube so that you can actually keep them and or, you know, pass them on to a friend if you want to do that too. Thanks very much. Have a great week. If you've got any suggestions for future lives, then please do pop them in the comments section below. Have a great week. Bye.